everyone, and welcome to the ADHD podcast, where we talk about everything at the intersection of fatherhood and neurodivergence. I'm your host, Braden Young, a certified ADHD life coach and founder of Empower ADHD Solutions. So, this is a solo episode, which means it's just you and me. No co-host, no guest, just a conversation I've been wanting to have for a while now because I think it's one of those topics that doesn't get talked about enough. But personal growth doesn't really happen if we don't talk about it, right? So here we are. Today we're talking about RSD, rejection sensitive dysphoria. And specifically, we're talking about what happens when your child is the one experiencing it and how easy it is, especially if you also have ADHD, to accidentally make their struggle about you. This one kind of hits close to home for me, and I think it's going to hit close to home for a lot of you too. Okay, let's do a quick grounding on RSD before we dive in, because I know some of you are newer to this space. Rejection-sensitive dysphoria isn't just being sad when someone doesn't like you. It's this intense, almost overwhelming emotional pain that comes from a real or perceived rejection or criticism. The key word there is perceived, because with ADHD and neurodivergent brains, the nervous system's wired differently. We don't just feel the sting of rejection, we feel it like a full body collision. Dr. William Dodson, who's done a ton of work on this, describes it as one of the most painful emotional experiences a person can have. And for those of us with ADHD, it doesn't take much to set it off. A tone of voice, a look, someone not texting back, getting left off of an invite. These can send us into a spiral that looks completely out of proportion to the people on the outside. Now, here's the thing. If you have ADHD, there's a solid chance your kid does too. Or maybe you have autism. Or they're just wired in a way that makes rejection feel enormous. And that means your household might have multiple people dealing with this at the same time, in very different ways, sometimes in the same moment. And that's where things get complicated. So picture this. Your kid comes home from school. Something went sideways. Maybe a friend group drama. Maybe they got left out of something. Maybe they tried hard at something and it didn't land the way they hoped. They're upset. They might be crying. Or they might be shutting down. Or they might be absolutely raging because that's what RSD can look like in kids. And you, as a parent, feel it. Not just empathy, I mean, you really feel it. Because somewhere in your memory, there's a file cabinet full of your own moments just like this one. The birthday party you didn't get invited to. The time you raised your hand and got laughed at. The friend who stopped calling you and you never knew why. The job you didn't get. The relationship that fell apart. And something in your nervous system goes, I know this. I know this pain. Which, honestly, is a beautiful thing. That's empathy. That's connection. That's part of what makes neurodivergent parents uniquely equipped to understand their kids. But here's where the line starts to blur. When your child's rejection becomes a trigger for your own unresolved rejection, the conversation can shift without you even realizing it. You might jump into fix-it mode so quickly that your child doesn't get to process what they're feeling. You might get so angry on their behalf that they end up managing your emotions instead of their own. Or you might quietly absorb their pain and carry it as your own. Not because it helps them, but because the feeling is so familiar you don't know where theirs ends and yours begins. That's not a character flaw. That's what happens when we haven't fully separated our own story from our kid's story. So here's the reframe I want to offer you today. Your kid's struggles are theirs to have. Their rejection, their hard moments, their failures, their heartbreaks, those belong to them. They're not a chapter in your autobiography. They're not a repeat of your childhood. They're not something you need to fix fast because the feeling is too much. Now, I want to be careful here because this is not me telling you to be detached. This is not about being emotionally unavailable. Your kids absolutely need you to be present and connected. What I'm talking about is the difference between empathy and enmeshment. Empathy says, I see you're hurting. I'm right here. Enmeshment says, your pain is my pain, and I need it to stop so I can feel okay again. One of those responses is for your child. The other one, even when it feels loving, is ultimately for you. When we're parenting with unmanaged RSD, the line between those two things gets really fuzzy really fast. Let me give you a few scenarios that might sound familiar. Your kid doesn't get picked for the team, or doesn't make the play, or gets dropped from the friend group, and your response is to go into full advocacy mode immediately. You're calling the coach, you're texting the other parents, you're making it a thing. Not necessarily because your kid asked you to, but because the rejection lit something up in you that couldn't sit still. Or maybe your kid's struggling socially, and every time they talk about it, you find yourself sharing your own story. Oh, I know exactly what that's like. When I was in middle school, blah, 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 blah. And suddenly the conversation that started about them has shifted to you. And your kid is nodding along, but quietly feeling like their thing didn't get the space it needed. This happened to me a lot when I was talking to my daughter about incidents in school that she'd have. She and I had a lot in common. She was very artistic, very talented musically, very creative in general. But whenever she'd have some sort of a situation with her friends, I found myself replaying incidents from my own teenage years back to her. And over time, this really wore thin on her. And it caused a distance between us that I didn't intend, something that I had to repair later on. That wasn't intended, but at the time, I didn't realize what was actually going on. And so I learned a lot from those experiences. Or maybe it goes in another direction. Your kid experiences rejection and you minimize it fast. You'll be just fine. This happens to everyone. Just move on. And on the surface, that sounds like perspective giving, but sometimes it's actually emotional avoidance because sitting with their pain means sitting with yours. And that's a lot. None of these responses make you a bad parent. They make you a human parent with your own history and your own nervous system. But awareness matters because once you can see the pattern, you have a choice. So, what do we actually do with this? Well, first thing, do your own work. I say this as a coach and as a dad. If you have unresolved rejection experiences that still sting when you poke them, that's worth paying attention to. That might mean therapy. That might mean coaching. That might mean just journaling and sitting with it. But if your kid's pain keeps activating something old in you, the most loving thing you can do is tend to your own wound so it doesn't bleed onto them. And the second thing, pause before you respond. I know, that's hard, but hear me out. When your child is hurting, your nervous system is going to want to do something. Fix it, fight it, flee it. That's just how threat responses work. But rejection isn't a physical threat. So you have a little more time than your nervous system thinks you do. Take a breath, get regulated, and then come to your child from a grounded place rather than a reactive one. Third thing, ask before you act. A simple question like, what do you need from me right now? Is powerful. Sometimes kids want you to fix it. Sometimes they just want you to listen. Sometimes they just want to sit with you and not talk about it at all. But when we assume we know what they need, we're often projecting what we would have needed as a kid, and they're not us. Fourth thing, let them own their story. Resist the urge to summarize their experience for them or define what it meant or tell them how they should feel about it. Their emotional experience is theirs to have. Your job is to be a safe place for them to have it, not to write the narrative for them. And finally, the fifth thing, model what it looks like to handle rejection without falling apart. This is the long game here. When you experience rejection and your kids see you feel it, process it, and move through it without it destroying you, that's a lesson more powerful than anything you'll ever say to them. You don't have to pretend you're fine, but you can let them see what it looks like to not be fine and still be okay. I want to speak directly to the parents out there who are also dealing with RSD themselves. When your child's rejection activates your own, it's not weakness. It's actually evidence of how deeply connected you are to them. The problem isn't that they feel it. The problem is when the feeling doesn't have anywhere healthy to go. You're allowed to grieve your own past. You're allowed to feel sad when your kid goes through something that mirrors your own childhood pain. Those feelings are valid, but they belong in a different conversation. Maybe with a partner, a therapist, a coach, a trusted friend, not on top of your child's experience. Protecting your child's emotional space from your own unprocessed stuff is one of the most generous things you can do as a parent. And it's hard. It's genuinely hard. I know. I'm not going to pretend otherwise. But you're doing this work, which means you're already someone who cares enough to look at the hard stuff. Your child's going to experience rejection multiple times, in big ways and small ways. Some of it's going to hurt to watch. Some of it's going to wake something up in you that you thought you dealt with a long time ago. And that's okay. The goal isn't to be a perfectly regulated, emotionally untouchable parent. The goal is to keep showing up, to keep doing your own work, and to make sure that when your child comes to you with their hurt, they get to keep it. It belongs to them. And your job is to sit beside them in it, not take it from them, as hard as that may be. Their story is theirs. And that's actually a good thing, because it means they're building resilience and identity and experience. And so are you. Thanks for listening, everyone. If this episode resonated with you, be sure to share it with another parent who might need to hear it. And also make sure to comment, like, subscribe, click all the things. And we'll see you next time.